Welcome to episode 28 of the Self-Care 101 podcast with your host, Puja McClymont, helping people achieve their full potential with effective self-care through wellbeing coaching. Thank you so much for listening today. In this episode, I get to interview the incredible guys behind Re+CBD, a premium wellness drink blending unique botanicals that promote balance within the body, which can help alleviate anxiety, pain, and insomnia, amongst other modern challenges symptomatic of our busy world. Josh, Cuby and Gabriel Newman are the brains behind this amazing product. Listen, I was a bit dubious at first when CBD products started coming out in the market, but as I've spent more time reading up on the science, I am now a believer. I was especially drawn to Re+CBD because of their well thought out ingredients and the fact that they are positioned in the wellbeing market, as opposed to the other market. Having worked with many clients who struggle with stress and anxiety, I'm pleased to see a product on the market that has gone through rigorous testing to prove that it can indeed help with these challenges, alongside additional therapies and lifestyle management. Re+CBD effortlessly supports the body's ability to produce and process serotonin, happy hormones, significantly contributing to our well-being both physically and mentally. At a time when we all feel the negative impact of being constantly connected, both digitally and physically, Re+CBD works in harmony with your lifestyle to help keep you calm and retain clarity. This is a fun, relaxed and informative interview which I hope you'll enjoy just as much as we did making it. It's also the first interview that I videoed, so if you want to experience the show visually, head over to YouTube and search for my channel, Frankly Coaching. Hi Josh, hi Gabriel.
Hello.
Thank you so much for doing this. We are recording it on video as well, which is quite scary. We've had a few technical issues, but we're gonna soldier on and hopefully it'll all be okay. I really appreciate you guys doing this. I get quite nervous doing the podcast with other people, but I just think that your story, like when we first met Josh, I was like, oh my god, where have you been all my life? Like, you know, what you're doing I think is really great. I think there's a lot of misconceptions with CBD products, and I think that what you're doing, how informed your product is, there's so much knowledge behind it. I think it's really interesting, and I hope that you get to change the whole world as a result of what you're up to. So yeah, right. So rather than me talk about it, I would love it if you could share basically what Re+CBD is, and then kind of like why, where'd you come from, why'd you do it?
I mean, where should we start from? Because there's so many different starting points, right?
I suppose we'd start from Josh and I were both working in family businesses, and we looked at each other one day and we thought, God, this is a bit boring, isn't it? We want to do something a little bit different, which, you know, something that we're both passionate about.
Yeah.
And I think it really starts from us both understanding and experiencing firsthand the benefits that the glorious cannabis plant can provide. And, you know, that's not just self-medicating, that is for general medicinal purposes. Yeah. I mean, just off the bat, you know, when we started conceptualizing the brand, you know, my mum suffered from quite severe anxiety, right. So I started prescribing her various different CBD products that were on the market, but I found myself getting frustrated with what people were saying was on the tin and what was actually in it. I think that was when we looked at it.
But how did you get that knowledge about CBD products helping? Was it your own sort of personal research before you started to set up the business?
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, we always have our ear to the ground. Obviously, we both used to smoke a fair bit of cannabis growing up. I did reach an age where I just thought to myself, actually, I need to do something with my life, so I packed that away. But it was always just understanding, and obviously the more that, you know, the sort of social stigma changed behind cannabis, and you know, obviously the legalization that happened over the pond, you know, the CBD coming to the market in the UK was exciting for us, and we were always looking at what was going on and keeping our ears to the ground. And so it got to the point where we thought, right, I think there's a chance that, you know, we really need to review it, and let's do something that we're confident that we'll deliver a product that we know will, you know, do great things to the market and does what it says on the tin. I think that's really the main purpose.
Yeah, I mean, for us as well, I just remember sitting there and thinking, you know, we are more than what we're doing right now. You know, Gabriel and I have both come from similar backgrounds in different parts of the world, where we saw a lot of people growing up who had a lot of opportunity. We see a lot of people growing up who had no opportunity. And I think we could probably agree to say we were pretty lucky to be able to fall into a family business, you know, and have something to build on. And we both took a lot of education and experience from that. But it comes to a point where you realise, all right, there's more I can offer.
Yeah.
And we're not being given the parameters to be able to achieve and do what we feel and what we know we can do. So I do remember looking at Gabriel. I mean, actually, it's funny because when we first really met, we were really friends because I grew up in Spain. Gabriel's been in Spain a few times. So we knew each other from having mutual friends there. But I ended up with a girlfriend, and Gabriel had this girlfriend as well, who, funnily enough, they both grew up with each other in Spain.
Okay.
Right. But I didn't meet my girlfriend until I moved back to London when I was about 19 or so. So both our girlfriends kind of brought us together in some capacity. And I remember like a couple of years into the relationship, I looked at Gabriel, I was like, mate, you know, let's drop the girls and me and you, let's focus on doing something together. And yeah, it just goes back to just knowing on the inside that there was more we can do. Not just on a financial basis, just like giving back. You know, we had good parents growing up, right? In some capacity, we had good parents growing up, and I would say that, you know, I was always happy to do more for others than I was for myself. And Gabriel was very much the same, which is, I suppose, why we came together so nice and neatly. I mean, look, not every business relationship is a match made in heaven. But I would say I'm pretty confident to say like this is a perfect business relationship. Very fortunate to have found each other there.
Yeah, I think the key is more than business. You know, Josh and I over the last 2 years have spent every day and every day together. And listen, we're still walking around, we're still smiling, we're still having fun, we're enjoying what we do. And I think that's the key thing. It's just finding something that you're genuinely passionate about. I mean, everyone can fall into a job where it's, you know, it's a 9 to 5, and if it doesn't have something that grips you and grasps you, you're always going to be miserable. And just, particularly living in London, you know, we have that old thing where everyone loves to chat about the weather because it's so shocking. Right. But that doesn't help, you know, when you're trying to work and you're trying to live a life. But you know, if there's all these things around you that don't make you happy,
it's not changing it. There's no point moaning about it because you're just perpetuating it. Do something about it. I mean, obviously that's what I'm all about. So you're inspired to set up your own business from your upbringing, which is great. And what were you working? Where were you working before? So what were you actually doing?
So I was working in a technology company where we specialised in asset tracking software, which is completely another sort of field. I spent 5 years doing that. And listen, it was, at the time, it was good. I learned a lot about business and understand what can be achieved, and learned a corporate side of the world, which I think I can tie into some parts of what we're doing now. But it was really just a case that I'd done 5 years, and I felt like I'd put my graft in for the family, and some things changed. You know, my parents started going through a divorce, and I just thought to myself, I'm not doing this for the family anymore, because the family is it's divided, right? So I didn't want to be in a position where I felt like I was just leaning to one side or helping one side out with the family. And when there were so many changes going on, I just felt like it was getting all a bit too much, and I needed to change myself. And
it's funny because as you were saying that, I sort of got into coaching mode, and I was going to say, so what was that like?
How did that make you feel?
Still dealing with it.
I was literally just about to go, And Josh, what were you doing?
I think it's worth noting, prior to explaining what I was doing, you know, I was living with Gabriel at the time, and I took a lot of inspiration watching him single-handedly run around and manage his family's business. Wow. And I don't say that lightheartedly. You know, seeing him get up every day, traveling around the country to God knows where, doing all of the different things that he was doing, and still looking good and carrying his family. You know, that was one of the things that made me like, I want to be doing that. And that was a massive inspiration. But just to say what I was doing, I was working in a family business as well, which is a media company called Balance. I don't know if anyone's heard of it. Check it, balance.media.
Everyone's heard of it. It's Balance magazine. Everyone's heard of it.
It's wicked. So my brother and sister were kind enough to bring me in. I was living in Spain at the time, doing property, real estate with my father. I wanted to move to London because of a girl. So I came to London. We were working in the health and wellness industry, and I suppose that's how it came around full circle, because working in Balance, seeing all of the new brands that were coming in and meeting, and all of these startups that really wanted to get out and help people and change the world doing what they were doing.
Me.
There we go. I remember sitting with Gabriel. I was like, all right, we need to do something in cannabis, because cannabis is something we both believe in. no one knows about it yet. We're fortunate enough to be in a position where, number one, we have a platform. Number two, we have the education already because, and we will explain why we had the education already, not just smoking joints. But, and we thought, okay, there are a few brands at the moment who are out there in America, especially Canada, who are involved in CBD. And we looked at a lot of them and, we looked at it and it was like, well, they're cannabis based. Exactly. They're all like focusing towards the recreational smoking market. And it wasn't really the idea that we had about cannabis, which was from a medicinal perspective. You've got so many different plants out there that have medicinal purposes. Why should cannabis be misconstrued as anything else other than a medicinal plant, which is what it is? Of course, everybody knows now you can go out and have it in a recreational sense, but we wanted to look at it deeper than that, and we wanted people to understand that there was a lot more to cannabis than just THC and getting stoned and getting the munchies, right?
So this is interesting that you say that, because when CBD oil and products started coming out, and I know that there's vaping as well, right? I'm not au fait on everything, but when it first started coming out, it was obviously very America-centric and stuff, and it seemed like it was, like you say, an alternative to actually puffing on weed. And personally, it turned me off. I mean, I'm not very good. I tried to smoke when I was at university once, got completely, it just monged me out, and I was like, nah, this is not for me. So I'm not someone who partakes in it, but I'm open to reducing anxiety, because as a mum, I feel, and obviously as a business owner as well, I feel like my anxiety levels are a lot higher than they used to be, and I don't get enough time for myself to actually release my stress in the way that I would do if I didn't have a kid, because you're just always on. I'm either being a coach, or I'm doing some marketing, or I'm being mum, so I'm never really doing the things that I need to do. And I started to inquire about CBD products because it was getting some better traction over here and the brands over here. And what attracted me to you was that medicinal side, that it was very well thought out. The ingredients that you use, I think, are very impressive, and I'm Ayurvedic in nature and growing up and stuff. So when I saw some of the products, I was like, okay, so they've done their research, and it was really very believable. Like, it was very, not believable, easy to trust the brand, because it wasn't just, I'm pushing an oil that you can buy at a petrol station sort of thing, right? To get you high or whatever. So in that it wasn't cluttered, but I guess it was starting to be a cluttered market, right? How did you differentiate your product apart from its medicinal side? Because others have claimed that it helps with anxiety and stress, and you're going to know more than I do. So how were you able to differentiate your product?
I'd love to go in on this, because we looked at it.
Go on, boy. He's excited.
Face lighting up as I was talking.
Because it's one of those things that, because like Josh had this case with his father and his back, and I'm sure he'll talk to us about that. Myself and my mum, she had a lot of things going on, right? She was going through a divorce, and it was a big change for her, right? She'd been married for nearly 30 years.
Yeah.
And I was giving her this oil, and I was telling her to take it when, this and that, and she just wanted something simpler, right? So we looked at it, and we looked at the market, and there's a variety of different ways that you can consume CBD. But we found that in everyday life, to give someone a product and say you have to take it at this point, and you have to take this amount, and there's all these different measurements to get a certain dose, and it just complicates something which is already so new to everyone.
Okay.
And we wanted to create a product which is just flexible, right? It's just convenient, right? So you can take any time of the day because of its sugar content, it's low in calories, it's got your measured dose of CBD, but of course, as you mentioned, the other botanical extracts that we put into there that we can start to make claims about, because they have been certified and they have been approved by the MHRA, which is the Health Association here in the UK, and it just gave us a different angle, because yes, another thing also is it actually tastes good. And I will say that with pride, because there's so many products out there, and everyone that we put this product in front of is so surprised at the taste, because the general consensus is that CBD tastes like dirt, which
it does.
Okay, yeah.
But for some people that some people like that kind of real earthy cup taste. I actually personally don't mind it, but it's you need to make it broad, and you need to make it something that that if you put this in front of someone, they're going to try it and they're going to enjoy it, and that's why we came up with the Re+CBD in its current format, because we looked at health shops on every street corner, every shop that you go into. This was 18 months, 2 years ago.
Yeah.
health shots just started appearing everywhere.
Yeah.
And we looked at it, and you go into prep, for example, and you find like a majority of the shot is apple juice.
Yes.
They're trying to charge £3.50 for something which is just apple juice.
Yeah.
You just think, how can we create a product which gives them a little bit more, but
Yeah.
gives them the same kind of convenience and the same kind of effect?
I am so pro this because it's exactly how I feel. Like when I go into those sorts of stores, you're like, there's a product I think in, and I'm sorry Prep, but I love you, but
It's got Prep coffee in front of you at the moment.
I've got a Prep coffee and a Prep apple juice. But I'm a fan of the brand, but there are some products in there that really jar me, and it does in general. Like when I see it, because it's actually an abuse of an ancient system and things like that, and it what's the word? It sort of makes it. It takes away the seriousness of it. So like there's a yoga bunny drink. It's got nothing to do with yoga. Yoga's got nothing to do with drink. The only drink in yoga, if you're a purist, is water.
Yeah,
that's it. So no, darling, that's not right what you're doing in there. So that kind of stuff jars me. Yeah. And it's the problem that I have trying to position myself, because I kind of refuse to jump on a bandwagon. But it's very difficult to get through to people with coaching without having some sort of jump on trend, I can revolutionize your life in this, session and blah, blah, blah. It's like, well, no, it's a process. Like, it's better off just being upfront and telling the truth. Exactly. So when I see those sorts of things, it infuriates me. And I like that you've taken what you've seen and sort of made it serious, but in a product that's not serious in the sense of like it's scary, it's inaccessible. You've made a really accessible product, especially for people like, I think I'm a good audience here, because it wouldn't be something I would naturally go to. I would be all, no, I need to meditate more and I should walk more and I should do this, but I need to sleep better.
You should still do all of that though.
Right. Yeah.
Not to substitute all of that.
No, I know. But I know that like, say, together. Like even just us doing this podcast together, like fretting about the recording buttons and stuff like that, as I was doing just now, I was more anxious because I felt like I was letting you down, because that's just sort of latent thoughts that we have, right? So because I'm taking your time, I appreciate and understand how busy you are, and I'm very grateful, and I know you know that, but you still feel a bit like get it working.
We're chill. I suppose we drink so much CBD now.
Maybe I should put a subscription forward, but
just give us your address, we'll send you some pictures.
But how have you found it breaking into the market in that vein? Like, are people taking you seriously?
Can I take this one?
Please do.
Thank you. Very interesting, because when we first started, CBD was, in terms of price, was through the roof, right? And what does that look like? So I'll give you an example. So if you wanted to buy the CBD that you'd use as an ingredient to go into the drink, a couple years ago, you're paying 20 grand a kilo, right? No joke. 20,000 a kilo. That's euros, not pounds. But okay. It doesn't really matter.
That's a lot of money.
Let's not go into Brexit.
To put it into perspective, the cost of CBD now, probably for the same product, is closer to 3,000.
Okay,
right? Wow. So there was and the whole cannabis community as a whole has felt the ripple effect of, everyone's like, yeah, cannabis, CBD, we're going to make loads of money. Everyone started growing, everyone started extracting, everyone put all this product onto the market, and then realized, well, actually the people who need to buy this product aren't as fastly evolved, so there aren't really that many people out there ready to buy the product. You read stories about tons and tons of cannabis getting burnt and going to waste because it goes off. But anyway, to cycle back to why I say all of this, I don't think it's fair for people to charge such an astronomical amount of money for a product that everyone should have access to. Just because it's CBD and it's intrinsic and it's rare to come by doesn't mean companies can get away with charging people, I'm not going to name names, but there's companies who do similar to what we do in terms of the beverage market, charging £7-8 a drink. It's like, it's not right.
But you know what, this is something interesting which I thought we might actually touch upon, but I'm going to say it because you're technically not the group. There's this school of thought that the wellness industry targets white people of a certain
demographic with financial
yes. So I wonder whether the CBD market was stopped pushing its agenda in that vein first, because like if we think about all products, like when we think about alcohol and stuff, like depending on how much you earn, obviously, you're going to go for
different types of brands. Yeah,
right?
I
The
think,
shop brand vodka compared to Absolute or something, right?
Of course, and I think on that point, you look at the initial price point that CBD was being marketed at, and look at Holland & Barrett as an early mover in the UK retail sector. Their CBD products, before they brought out their own brand, which the quality-wise, I'm not going to say anything about. But you look at the brands that were in there, and just the pricing. I think it speaks for itself. If you're pricing products at such a point, you can only be looking to target a certain market because other people just can't afford it.
Right.
Yeah. It's one of those things that the market, and this relates to the raw cost of what people had to pay back then. But they're still mirroring these astronomical prices today. And we know that not only it shouldn't have been priced at that point originally, but they're still holding these prices. And I think it really needs someone to go in there and disrupt the market, which is what we're trying to do. And we're trying to create a product. We've gone for just one flavour at the moment. It's tropical because we feel that is for everyone's taste.
Yeah.
Who doesn't like tropical?
Yeah, right.
Exactly. And we're really not targeting anyone. We're really created this product for it to be CBD accessible to the mass market.
And is it all pro people with allergens and stuff like that?
Correct. And the most important thing to take away from this as well is that, if we're going to break it down to its proper fine layers and really look at why we got into it, fine. CBD is one thing, all right? But CBD isn't the only reason we got into this business. We got into this business because we wanted to bring something better to people's lives. I mean, if you just have a look at the ingredients itself, you got vitamin B complex, vegans, I don't need to say any more.
Yeah.
Ashwagandha, a root that not too many people know about, but it's coming into the light now.
Well, this is very Ayurvedic because it's a core root in our
Why don't you explain to the people?
I'm not explaining anything. So I'm interviewing you.
Yeah.
But for me, when I saw the ashwagandha, I was like, boys have done their research. And for me, because I'm a bit of a purist, a bit of a snob when it comes to anything like this, I kind of wait it out to see, is this a trend? So like when we were talking about at the beginning about CBD sort of starting in the States and being very trend led and high, I kind of sit back for a bit, and it was only your product that made me take notice, and especially because I saw obviously the ashwagandha, the B complex, yes, but the ashwagandha more so because I was like, how do you know about this?
Well,
how do you know about this?
Look, it's funny because, and there's so many things I want to say today, and I will say them all.
Do it.
And I don't know how to get it all out in one go. I'm so excited. All right, so...
See how I love Josh and like why I love Josh? Yeah, go.
I'm not offended by that comment.
I love Gabriel too, but we're still new.
We're learning.
We're still learning each other.
Okay, you got to understand, CBD was a taboo when it comes to marketing and advertising. And don't get me wrong, we wanted to create a good product, but you need to sell units. We want people to get the units.
Like tobacco.
Exactly, right? There's only certain things that you were able to do. In fact, when we first started, there was nothing you could do. You weren't allowed to use social media to advertise and market.
When was this? When did you start?
18 months.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So just, okay.
When we were learning about it, right? So Gabriel and I were like, look, what does CBD do? Okay, CBD does X, Y, and Z. What other ingredients are there that match what CBD can do for you, which people will be able to find out about, what we can talk about, what we can sing about, which will then allow people to educate themselves, because there's a lot of uncertainty about CBD. I mean, there's so many things I've got to say, keep coming to my mind. I don't want to get carried away, but there's so many different things that CBD can do that other ingredients will help CBD to do. And when we put that in front of people and we can market and advertise those things in front of people, not only are we expanding the horizons of information on how to live a bit better, how to live healthy, it's also allowing people to understand what CBD is. CBD isn't what most people think it is. Cannabis, it's going to get me stoned. When I told my nan what I was doing, God, mate, it was so funny. You're like, cannabis is going to get you stoned, the devil's lettuce, blah, blah, blah. You know what they're all used to, right?
Lettuce.
The devil's lettuce.
Gosh. Okay, love it.
But now you'll see her, she's the biggest advocate for one of the pain creams that we make.
Oh, is she?
Funnily enough, my grandparents are our biggest fans as well. So, I mean, it was obviously, it was when you first tell them, we're involved in cannabis, like, is it legal? Like, yes, don't worry, you're not going to have to go visit me in the state tent. So, but yeah, I mean, they're both our biggest advocates. And funnily enough, one of the creams that we do in another brand, Josh's grandmother is our top salesman. She has been touting it to all of her friends, and they've all wrote us glaring reviews on the product. It's very sweet. It's very sweet.
Did you think that the OAP market was going to be one of your target demographics?
When you think about it now, yeah, it kind of makes sense.
It makes a lot of sense.
Now it makes sense
Yeah.
when you think about it now. Initially, it was, you know, a lot of people sat at their desks a lot of the time. A lot of people play games a lot of the time. A lot of people are stagnant a lot of the time. And when you're so still for so long, get aches, get pains in your back. A lot of people suffer from back pain. So we genuinely thought it would be, you know, the same people, you know, the 25s to 45s in the everyday hustle and bustle who are just getting those aches and pains that come from doing office jobs and the stuff that we wanted to get away from.
So was that the inspiration for creating the product that you've created for aches and pains?
Listen, I suppose that there's an array of things. But, you know, we looked at it as everyday stresses of living in London, really, because we could only compare to, you know, to experiences that we had firsthand.
Yeah.
Right? As you know, commuting on the tube. I mean, thank God we don't have to do it anymore. Josh, we both did it this morning, but that's a rarity. And sometimes it's nice to have a little reality check. But you know, traveling on the tube every day and commuting and then doing those jobs, only getting an hour away, you know, to have a lunch break, and it does take its toll. Like, you know, just having that time just to get away for a moment, and that's why we created the product. That you have it in the morning, you have it at lunch, you have it at night time, whenever you want. But that little hour window, I mean, you know, I set, you know, in terms of my self-care, every day, you know, I have a reminder at midday from Calm, which I should plug in more other things as well. That was important. But, you know, I have a reminder just to say, you know, go take 10 minutes to do a little daily meditation and get away from it. And I think all these things that you can do, they just help the cause.
Really using tools is absolutely fine. Absolutely. It's very difficult in our lives today to be purists and do everything the way it was designed to be done, because we're not living the lives that we were living. You know, we had very different threats. You know, we talk about fight or flight. You know, we were scared of lions killing us. We're obviously not in there now.
It's just Corona killing us.
Exactly, right.
Which I don't believe, by the way. But anyway.
So it does. So it changes. So it's like where I have stigmas with people doing yoga. It's like, I don't have a problem with you doing the yoga. All I'm saying is be informed about what you're doing, because you might put a lot of pressure into yoga delivering results for you that it can't do, because you're not living a yogic philosophy life, essentially. And it's very difficult to live that, but you can take bits to contribute to make it happen.
That's why we matched this product, because this product was something that people can take within their, you know, the hustle and bustle of daily life.
Right.
Doesn't matter what you're doing, there's always time for a read.
So what happens because I've not had it yet. So
we're going to have one at the end. So
So what happens what happens in your body when you have...
So this is an interesting point, right? Because a lot of people who've tried CBD have been like, it didn't happen, it didn't work for me. But like, there's something you need to understand here. When you're taking CBD, it's the same as taking a vitamin, or the same as you taking any other ingredient that you put into your body for self-healing and wellness. It's not going to happen like that. You're not going to take it and be like, oh, bam, all of a sudden I'm the healthiest guy in the world.
Right.
This is something you need to be doing as part of your everyday lifestyle, right? So when people, I read people, I tried a couple of drops, it didn't do anything. Mate, how long did you try it for? Like, how often do you eat? Like if you drink water, you have to do it every day, otherwise you're going to dehydrate. You know, it's the same thing. People need to understand that this is something that you need to do as a consistent daily routine. You need to be involved in looking after yourself, so you need to be eating properly every day. You know, like, that is something that people misunderstand.
So you can't be like getting pissed and eating kebabs and then hoping that that's going to sort you out the next day at work.
Definitely not. I mean, I'll never advocate eating kebabs anyway, but
but you know what I mean.
But,
like,
you know, and you know, we get a lot of people that come back to us and go, oh God, it cured my hangover. And you know what, for us to sit there and say, okay, the science would say probably not, but the fact that people do have that feeling, and maybe, you know, sometimes that you do get a bit of anxiety when you're really hungover the next day. I think that results in the guilt, probably. You sit there going, oh God, why have I done that? I shouldn't have spent all that money. I shouldn't have got that drunk.
Exactly.
I shouldn't have kissed that person. But it happens, right? I suppose that edge, it makes sense. You know, getting a little bit anxiety, you know, a bit of anxiety after a day of heavy drinking does make sense. But you know, it's certainly that it needs to be, you know, the CBD receptors in your brain, they're there for a reason. So you need to tap into those, and it has to be.
Say that again. CBD receptors in your brain.
Correct.
All right.
Correct.
What? I didn't know I had CBD receptors in my brain.
Inside your body, you have an endocannabinoid system. All right.
We're going to
Which
get
is-
scientific.
Yeah, we
now.
can
Do
get
it!
scientific.
And we're not scientists.
Do
We're
it.
not scientists.
I lap this stuff up.
Yeah.
If you've got that much science behind it, go.
So inside our bodies we have an endocannabinoid system, which means we have cannabis receptors or cannabinoid receptors. So when we are taking in THC or when we're taking in anything from the cannabis plant,
What's THC?
so THC is the active psychoactive ingredient in cannabis.
Okay.
So that's what gets you stoned.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which is
Okay.
why everyone's like, scared of cannabis. CBD,
Yes,
it must all
yes.
be the same thing, right?
Yes.
And there is a strong misconception which Gabriel and I have been studying over the last 6 to 12 months, where people say that CBD isn't psychoactive, right? But everything has a psychoactive property. It just doesn't have a psychoactive property in the way that you assume it would be psychoactive. You think, psychoactive, magic mushrooms or THC, change my visuals and stuff.
Yeah.
But look, if you take a product into your body and that product allows you to reduce anxiety, there is some sort of psychoactive action taking place there, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's really interesting that our bodies have these systems inside of us that allow us to take these cannabinoids and use them to help our general well-being and help us, internally. So it is very interesting, and it's something that I do implore people to go out and research, because not only is it about CBD and cannabis, it's actually about your body, and it's interesting to know what you have in your body, what works inside your body that you don't know about, especially in your brain when you got signals banging all the time. It's really interesting.
So then if we, I don't know, say I'm example A, if I started taking your product for maybe, we'll say 6 weeks is usually the magic number, isn't it, for anything sort of for your body to get kicking in. It's the 21-day cycle, yeah.
Correct.
So if I start doing that, what can I expect what sort of effects am I going to feel or appreciate as it sort of builds up in my immune system? Because I can understand the science behind taking something like this, and obviously with the other ingredients, that building stuff up inside my immunity or endocrine system. You tell me.
I mean, I think for me personally, anyone that knows me knows I'm extremely high strung.
Okay.
And I just am. It's just one of those people. I'm very. I get worked up very easily. But since consuming CBD for about 18 months consistently on a daily basis now, I just have a little more time to reflect on things before I make knee-jerk decisions. And I suppose I do attribute that down just to a level of calmness within myself, and just being a little bit more in touch with what's going on in my body, and just taking the time to reflect it. And I attribute that to CBD. It could be other things in my life. There's been a lot of things that have put my mind into a much healthier place. I am just genuinely happy now than I was a year ago, and I know that can be attributed to a lot of different things that have happened over the last year. But I do put CBD down there as just something that has helped me get to that stage.
Okay, cool.
It's definitely something that allows you to. I feel I like to look at this way. Imagine you're completely full up to the neck, right?
Next here, then.
Yeah, completely full up to the head. Sorry, no, because I was just visualizing it. Imagine you're completely full up to the head. Which means...
Which most of us are.
Yeah, you're completely full up to the head, and that means you've got no movement to move, because if you move, you're going to spill.
Yes.
Right? And that's when things start... I always feel like the CBD just allows you to just deflate and drain yourself of all of the things that are filling you up, which will then put you in a position where you can take a step back and make a more refined decision, or make a improved action on what you're doing. Maybe it stops you from snapping at your partner. Maybe it stops you from getting frustrated to somebody on the train. I always find, like, in the morning, the smallest thing can set you off for a bad day. If you come out of your house in the morning, you step in a puddle, you're like,
100%, yeah. And then you fall down that. I'm always doing this with clients. Yeah, you just like, okay, that's it. Now I'm going to have a bad day. So then every interaction, every experience, someone's pushing you on the train, or there's no space, there's no seats.
Exactly.
Everything becomes a product, and then your whole day goes like that.
And if you can just nip that in the bud as soon as that happens, and be like, I know what that is. That's me stepping in a puddle, but you know what? Meh. I can change my socks. It's not the end of the world. And I find, like, people who get irritated a lot quicker this is something that definitely can benefit. And it's not just the CBD, it's the other ingredients in there as well. We've got ingredients in there like dandelion leaf for digestion, turmeric as well for the inflammation of the body. A lot of people forget that a lot of pains that we inflammation comes from eating bad foods. Inflammation comes from getting injured. Inflammation is a reaction from your body to say, whoa, stop, because you're hurting yourself.
And just to sort of circle in there on the Ayurvedic side, because obviously turmeric is
Okay, that one.
from my side of it. So with turmeric, like you say, inflammation, when you get stressed inside your body, what we say is that your body heats up, basically. So there's nowhere to let that stress out unless you actively choose to. And so with that heat is caused the inflammation. So the stress is actually causing the digestive reaction to inflammation. It's fascinating.
I love it. And just to go back to why would you take it, or when would you take it, how would you take it? Gabriel and I are actively working in the space, not just to help everyday commuters. They're not the only people who get stressed, Sure. All right, let's have a look at the top end people. So when we look at celebrities, when we look at actors, when we look at musicians, you got to understand these guys are in the limelight for a heck of a lot of time, right? Yeah. And you don't realize the stresses that they come under. I mean, look, all right, fine. Let's look at actors, for example. It's all well and good when you see them on screen. Yeah. But what about just before they went onto set? Yeah. Or what about when they're doing their auditions, or when they're trying to remember their lines? Like my girlfriend, she's an actress, and the amount of times we've spent up until 2:00 in the morning trying to get a self-tape right. You can physically feel the stress and anxiety that comes over having a deadline and wanting to come across, and then maybe you didn't say something properly, and she'll be the first to tell you. She gets very anxious, and she suffers from some extreme anxiety from times to times. And prior to that, you can see tensions in relationships developing because of that. But it's not their fault. No one chooses to be anxious. And I always look at people who are anxious as people who are just really, really aware. Yeah. People who are really so observant to the point it really disrupts their thought process because they can't get away from the fact that they've noticed something is not right and it needs to be changed. Yeah. And I believe that, now I've got her on the drinks and a few other things, that it's taken that stress of, I don't know whether the right word is perfection, but the stress of making sure everything is correct. And it allows her to just flow naturally, which I think a lot of people, musicians, actors, when they're about to produce or when they're going on set, a lot of that can be overwhelming. And I'm sure there's a lot of actors out there and actresses who will tell you firsthand the stresses and anxieties that they get. I mean, don't forget, these guys are away from their families for ages completely. As well.
And like when you're doing press for a new show or a movie, you're literally traveling. You'll be in like 3 cities in the same day. I mean, it's insane. You're never at home. It's a lot. So intense, I completely agree. I mean, the celebrity conversation can be a really big conversation, actually, especially with recent events with Caroline Flack and Amy Winehouse, and things like that. Like you can really see where there is a need for additional support for them, for sure, because I think that it's that whole, they're ordinary people put into the limelight, and they might be good at their job, but that doesn't mean that they're good up here. There's other, do you know what I mean? And obviously, like with coaching, we talk about the past a little bit, and it does contribute to how you you get stuck kind of, later on in life and whatever, or you're affected by it all the time. Everyone's at a different point. But I wanted to speak to you about the 2 stories. So you've got a story about your dad, and you've got a story about your brother.
I do indeed.
And I think that those stories should be shared.
Yeah.
Happy to do so, Josh.
Mine's a bit shorter for sure, and I think it'd probably be a bit easier to get into. So, my father, it's so funny because the whole situation and how we all failed to work with each other and stuff, it's such a bizarre, and you couldn't write it. And I look back every time and I'm like, wow, I can't believe these things actually happened and we are where we are, because the odds were stacked against us every single day. Something happened where it was like, sorry, don't mean to swear. Sorry. But sometimes there's no other words to use. So when Gabriel and I were first saying, all right, let's do something together, we started conceptualizing. We came up with ideas, what we were going to do. We were working long days, putting it together. And it was coming up to Christmas, and I remember, we were really positive, things were really happening, and then I get a phone call, your dad's had a heart attack. I'm like, oh, fuck. So what's the situation? Is he all right? Is he okay? Look, no, you need to fly out. you need to come see him. This is in Spain at the time.
Yeah.
And we had literally just got the branding, got the drinks ready, and it was like, all right, full steam ahead, let's go out and action it. And then all of a sudden, I'm in another country. Gabriel's been left to sort of like hold everything together. And I get out of there and, you know, I see my dad in his hospital bed and I'm thinking, oh, bloody hell, you know, he looked awful. He was in pain, you know, it was a horrific experience to see your dad like that as well. Someone you've looked up to your whole life be so weak, you know, someone you've thought, you know, is your idol. And then the next day, your grandma's died, you know? So then my mum, so bearing in mind, it's my mum, my brother, my little brother, my little sister, and my dad, who were all living in Spain at the time. My mum gets a call, yeah, your mum's died, you need to fly to Scotland. So now all of a sudden, not only has my mum got to leave all of us there looking after my dad because her mum has just died, my grandma's just died. Gabriel sat there. Now I have to extend my trip because I can't come back as soon, and my dad's still not recovering very well. And if anyone knows my dad was so adamant to get out of hospital. Like, he was like, no, I'm too tough, heart attack don't mean anything, you know. So it was really funny, but in reality, when we got him home, you know, you could see he was really suffering, right? And the pain, especially for him around his body and his aches and pains, was something that I was like, all right, cool. Let's give Gabriel, let's give my dad some CBD oils and some CBD creams for pains for his back, because he just had sciatica, he just had a slip disc. They wanted to do an operation. Then on top of this, he's had a heart attack. Like, he's really going through the wars here. Yeah. Although he would tell you that he was fine and it was nothing, you know, it was like completely tough as nails. And I was giving it to him, and do you know what? He started perking up. And he was eating. Because don't forget as well, you know, when you're ill, you don't want to eat. He was eating ice cream. All he wanted to eat was ice cream. I'm not going to plug the ice cream he was eating, but there was a specific brand out there that he was just that's all he'd have, breakfast, lunch and dinner. Yeah. And then you look from a health and wellness perspective, like, that's not what your body needs. Your body doesn't need these refined sugars that you're putting into your body. So when I started giving him CBD oil, and this is quite interesting because he hated the taste of oil. He didn't want to take it. So I want my dad to take CBD, but now he's not taking it because it tastes horrible and it's getting everywhere. Then he poured it on his bed sheets and he was like, oh, my bed sheets, you know? So that's when we looked at each other like, okay, we need to create something that isn't going to be as, you know, finicky and as annoying and as, you know, and it almost feels like medicine, and it doesn't feel natural. It doesn't feel smooth. It doesn't feel, you know, it doesn't feel right and proper. So, you know, I spent close to 2 months out in Spain looking after my dad with my younger brother Sam, big up Sam, who was, you know, very, very strong and really was there for my dad when we couldn't all be, you know. Like, I remember my dad falling out of bed at like 3 a.m. and couldn't get back up, screaming the house down, you know, my brother having to come and pick him up. Like, my brother's the same size as me, you know, my dad's a big guy. You know, you can imagine how traumatic those things are for kids as well. Sure. So again, getting him on the CBD and allowing him to, like, come to terms with what's happened, you know, thinking your dad's going to die and then he doesn't, and you see him improving and recovering. So just as, you know, the weight came off of our shoulders and I got back to London, you know, I remember, you know, you can tell the story, but I remember Gabriel, you know, picking me up one morning and I got in the car with him and yeah, I'll let you tell the rest. Yeah, I mean, I'll just go on to that. So that was January 2019, and that was a mad month for us both. Obviously, we just sort of got an idea of what we wanted to do and how we wanted to action it. Obviously, after New Year's and everything, everyone's on cloud nine. We've got this whole vision of how this year's going to play out and what we're going to do. And obviously, that horrible news came out about Josh's dad. And that same month, 2 weeks later, my parents separated, right? So they moved out of the family house that we'd lived in for many, many years. So I was kind of whilst trying to liaise with Josh, run a business, set up a startup, manage your parents, trying to sort out, be that person that's, you know, trying to pacify all sorts of things that are going on. You know, trying to help my mum move out and my dad. It was a manic time. Yeah. We kind of got through it, and straight away when that happened, I was like, right, cool, I'm going to move in with my mum. You know, she just spent 25 years raising four boys, and she was always surrounded by people, and was always, you know, every Saturday our house would turn into a sports cafe. And everyone would come around and we'd just be having it off and watch the sport. And then she moved into a flat on her own, and she really suffered from being incredibly lonely. So I said, you know, forget it, I'm just going to move out of where I was, and I moved back up to North London. I moved in with her. Nice. And then, you know, Josh came back, and in March that year, my 12-year-old brother was
complaining of aches in his left shoulder. And I remember the most bizarre thing is I used to go to him, I was like, he got punched at school by a bully, right? He just joined a new school. He got punched in the shoulder. And like 6 weeks later, he's still looking at me. He's still telling everyone that his shoulder hurts. So I was like, Albie, stop being such a pussy. I was like, why are you being like that? You just man up about it. Why don't you go hit him back? He's like, no, he's got loads of mates. Anyway. So he went to the NHS. They're like, it's fine. They basically want to give him Nurofen. And, they came out and he looked at my dad and he said, I'm still in pain. So my dad was like, okay, forget this. Let's go pay for an MRI. So I went and paid for an MRI. And lo and behold, he had what's called a Ewing sarcoma. So it was a tumor growing out of his shoulder blade. And it's a cancer that's quite prolific in children and adolescent kids, right? So it was all a massive shock to the whole family, extended. Obviously, that's one thing. Cancer is always one of those things that it's always around, and obviously there's so much tragedy behind it. But you never expect it's going to happen to you. And I remember Josh has just
How old is he? Sorry,
he's 12
at the time. He was 12.
He turns 13 in May, and I remember literally picking Josh up when I was like, "Listen, Albie's sick. He's starting chemotherapy next month." And it was all just how we kind of all managed that, and it was an incredibly difficult year, but honestly, I think it's probably the most defining year of my life, and I think it's done a lot for our family. Just, where we were being driven apart, it kind of just brought everyone together. I'm not talking about just my parents and our immediate family. I'm talking about, my cousins, my uncles, everyone just came together. And we're now 10 times closer than we are now, and there's so many things that happened throughout that path, which just kind of they build you, right? They make you stronger for sure. And it is a cliche to say, but there's no other way to look at it, and thank God. There's a few different stories that I can tell you about. Hopefully we won't get arrested for, but
we've got to tell. There's some good stories. We've got to tell some good stories.
I will divulge into it.
Story.
But the good news is listen, he's been given the all clear. He had an operation back in December, and he's making a full recovery. So he's on great form. He was a strong character prior to it all happening, and I'm ready for him to take over the world now. So watch out for Albie Newman's going to take over the world. But I think one story that's obviously really, really important to tell is it's very, very poignant to what we're discussing now. And Josh and I were working from...
We had no office, did we? We couldn't have an office, so we had to work from the hospital.
We were working from the hospital while he was there having chemotherapy, and it was a moment where we were sitting there. We went to like the kids play area, right?
And Lego in our office.
We're sitting there, we're working, and my little brother's there, and there's another kid there, and they're playing on the PlayStation. And Josh and I are talking about what we're doing and the CBD, and this guy just looks at us and goes, "Are you guys talking about CBD?" And we looked at it like, "Yeah, we are." And he said, and then we started talking about what we're doing, and we talked about obviously that weirdly enough, both my little brother and this guy's son had exactly the same thing. They had a Ewing sarcoma.
So rare.
And so we started talking to about it, and he said, are you doing anything, on the cannabis side? And we said, we'd love to, we're giving him CBD oil, but everything that comes out in terms of all the trials that have happened, combating cancer, it's all about THC, right? So it's the other side that does have a psychoactive property, but those are the ones that they really feel kills the cancer, but also more importantly, gives kids or gives anyone, it gives them munchies, right? So then you start eating. One thing that kills you when you're having cancer is your body weight just keeps dropping and dropping and dropping.
You saw it big time.
Oh God, I mean, he lost so much weight throughout the process, but so anyway, we started talking to this guy, and funnily enough, he had also had testicular cancer himself, and he was creating himself this oil, which is cannabis oil, and he was giving it to himself, and he said that the terminology he uses is that he nuked the cancer. When he had testicular cancer, he was putting so much cannabis into his body that the cancer cells couldn't grab onto the healthy cells.
Wow.
So he said, if you want, I can get you some. I was like, at that point, we're just like, anything. Obviously we'd seen what's going on in other parts of the world, and we were full advocates of the cannabis plant anyway. And then so throughout that time, we were prescribing him with this cannabis oil, and we'd have to take open paracetamol caps and pour out the powder, and then put a little drop of this stuff, a grain of rice, really
paste as well, wasn't it? It wasn't
really
even oil, it was a paste.
Really minute amounts, and we'd call it his herbal pills, and he was taking, I'm not joking, like 15 different pills a day as part of his treatment, and one of those was his herbal pills. And we saw so many times, like he'd come home out of chemotherapy, he'd be home for like a week, he'd do 1 week on, 1 week off, and throughout that week we could give him his herbal pills, and throughout that week we'd sit around, he'd be laughing, he'd be eating, he'd be out, he'd just be walking around having a laugh, and that was so rare and just so special to see, and just did everything for us just to make us feel that he is having some sort of normality and still having a good time. And
what about the sessions?
Forget about what they say it does for the cancer cells. I'm talking about just what it does for the mind, right? His mood was just so much better because he was, I'm not being funny, he was a little bit stoned.
Yeah.
but at the time, just thinking that you're putting all that poison, all those chemicals into those bodies. I mean, he was having orange liquids, blue liquids, and when you actually see what goes into chemotherapy firsthand, it's frightening. Chemotherapy is just a concoction of all these poisons that they're putting into these buds, into your body. They're hoping it's going to kill the cancer before it kills you, and that is as black and white as it is. And thankfully, throughout the end of his treatment, he came out of his chemotherapy, he had proton beam therapy, which is amazing new technology that we don't need to go into, but it basically targets as opposed to radiotherapy, which just nukes your whole body.
Right. Proton
beam therapy is, it's the size of, it's on a molecular level, and it really just targets the cancer. And he had that up in Manchester, and then he had an operation, and he's gone full circle, and now he's on the road to recovery. So it's
amazing.
It is amazing.
Amazing.
So, and it just
incentivizes you to just keep going, doing what we're doing, so people know.
Completely, because obviously, it's been almost 2 years now, your journey from where it started, and it's been so up and down, around and around, just in general, like with stuff going on in your life, and then you decided that you wanted to do something that gave back in the world, right? And
there's no doubt in our mind now that we know what the cannabis plant can do.
Right.
Yeah. No one can tell us any different.
Exactly. I mean, it's like because you were going. You could say this universally. You could say this spiritually, whatever. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? But you were both going through a whole load of shit, and then obviously what happens with Albie throws you completely. You could have given up on what you were doing, and it's with my work, I do a lot of purpose finding, because a lot of people come to me at the point where really they just don't have purpose. They get up and go to work, but they don't actually have purpose as to why they go to work apart from paying the bills. And the thing is, that's where you create unhappiness and mental health problems come into play. And it's you had an idea because you wanted to do something different from the work you were doing. You wanted to give back in society. And then it was what happened with Albie, what happened with your dad kind of gave you this is the green light moment to say 100% this is what you were put on this earth to do, kind of thing.
We held it together when so many people were get a job, you need a job, you need to work, you need to make money. And we had no money. I remember literally for months and months we were eating tuna. It was just tuna every day, we had nothing, the bare bones. And so many times people give up. It's not going to work. You're not going to be bigger than Red Bull. You're not going to be a successful company. Don't do it. Stop. Come get a job. Work normal. Get a normal life. All this normal life business.
That was pushing their own fears onto you.
Exactly. And that is exactly
that's what it is. 100%. They're not brave enough to make the choice. 100%. And you guys are young enough to make the choice.
Yeah, so to anybody out there listening and someone's telling you not to do it, that should be even more incentive to do it. Because I tell you what, if you follow your passion, you follow your belief system, the money will come. The money isn't the thing you should be chasing right now. You should be chasing improving the world, giving something back, so that when you have kids, if that's what you want to do, they come back and they look, oh, my mum, my dad, what a great inspiration. I'm now going to go and do more than what they did. Because that's what you want for your kids, right? You want your kids to go and do more than you. I mean, we're not parents, but, for our brothers, our younger brothers, we want that. And I'm sure it's the exact same thing for you and your kids. So
100%.
Yeah, anyone listening, do what you want to do and don't let anyone tell you any different. And even when times slap you in the face and life is hard, and life will be bloody hard because we've been through it, don't give up, because that is when the light is just about to shine. When it is darkest, I know that saying, was it darkest before dawn? Something like that. And, we've really felt that, and we know what it means to believe and visualize. There's a lot to do with visualizing what we did and just believing and telling ourselves and picturing where we wanted to be and tasting it almost to the point where it was okay, this has happened already in the future. We just now need to do those steps to get there. And that is something that we believe every day, right?
Yeah, I mean, only on that whole thing where everything is written, I never used to believe in that kind of stuff. But after everything that's happened, since we've begun on this journey together, I don't know if we do have choices. I really started to question it, because I just think you couldn't write what's happened to us in the last, since we started this whole journey. You just couldn't, everything that's happened, we just looked at them like, well, this is what we were here to do, for sure.
Well, we had a choice to give up and we didn't, that's for sure. I think I do get what you're saying. Like we don't have choices in the sense of, things are put in front of us and opportunities are put in front of us. And do we have the? We could go back.
It's up to you to take it. We could. This is a whole other podcast, but it is opportunities.
I'd like to do that as well.
Yeah, we'll do it. Opportunities are presented to us every day, every moment of our lives, and it's up to us to make the choice. In the same way, like if we go back to that walking out of the house and you step into a puddle, you have the choice then to decide that the rest of your day is going to be rubbish, or make it like, okay, all right, that's it. That's it. It happened. Move on. Stuff happens, but you keep moving on. You keep moving it forward, because if you're living one life, right? I know I believe in reincarnation, but in theory, you're living one life. So make it, live it right now. 100% with you there, and just do it. Do what you want to do. If you are fed up of the weather, move.
My mum always said something to me, and it stuck with me from the beginning. She says, if you can just change one person's life for the better,
It's funny, that's my mission.
You've done well.
Yeah, when I set up this podcast, I was like, if I can just help one person, I'm going to keep this goal very small. But the point of me doing the podcast, why I wanted to do it, was so that people could get to know me through a very natural way. So they could sort of like get a feel for coaching, but they could also get a feel for working with me. But when my initial purpose for going into coaching as a whole, changing my career from marketing, was because I had a breakdown, and I was like, oh my God, if I had just had the help to do this, and the right kind of help, and coaching really helped me, so that's why I went into it. But my blanket mission was to be able to, if I can just help one person, I've done it. Like I've done what I set out to do. Thankfully I've helped a few more than that. But it's always been that. And I think if you have that, it gives you real perspective, and especially when you can see it happening, like with Albie, with Dad, it's just amazing.
I remember when I forgot all of that, and that didn't mean anything to me. When I was 18 years old, my mum died, and I remember thinking, fuck life, how can something like that happen? It's such a horrible situation. Like, I always used to resent myself because I was never old enough to help her or to protect her or to save her from what she did to herself. My mum killed herself through drinking drugs. And this is also another reason why we get into the health and wellness space and into the mental health space, because there's only so much one person can do to help another person once they've got into that cycle of self-annihilation, right? There's only so much you can do. So I always look at what happened, once my mum died, I became really negative. I just thought, okay, I got into drugs, not just taking, but selling. And, that just put such stresses on my dad as well. I remember the things that happened once there. I remember when I got my house raided and kicked in, and I was so close. Like, if they'd come a day before, I was in prison for years. Yeah. If they'd come the day before, I was in prison for years. And that, again, when we look at universe and paths, and, you get an opportunity to sit back and reflect, and you look at yourself and you're like, okay, there is opportunities here. I'm being given an opportunity or a chance to do something. There must be purpose. And then you get a job and you start working. You're like, this isn't the purpose. There's still something else out there. Yeah. And it all comes back to helping people, And I just remember thinking, I always used to resent myself, and I would never allow myself to cry because I didn't want to cry about my mum, because I thought, okay, just be strong about it and go forward and carry on with your life. It is what it is. But I remember that was another thing that was preventing my mental health, never accepting it, and then always feeling like, it was my fault. I could have done something to help her, which now I know is not the case. There was nothing I could do. I was never in a position to be able to do so. But what we are in a position to do so now is people like your mum, who we've been there and we've seen her in her worst times, and to know that now we have the education, we have the platform, we have the resources to go out and help these people. Yeah. And I think, fine, I wasn't able to help my mum, but there's other mums that I can help. I call Gabriel's mum my mum, Yeah. So it's all about bringing it full circle and learning from the mistakes and taking the time to to step back, look at what you've been through, and look at it and analyze, okay, how can I go forward and help other people through what I've been through? Because there are loads of people out there who've been through way worse than we have. I know that for a fact.
I think you guys are mad inspiring. I mean, obviously I got high off meeting you as it was, but like we were just,
there was no THC. I just want to let you know.
There's nothing. We were just bam, 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 like bouncing, and we feel that we could have just talked for hours, and even our exchanges on WhatsApp have been really just chill and easy, and I'm now connected to your mum, and like we talk on LinkedIn as well, and it's just that whole energy attracting I did a podcast on this about how your energy affects how you feel. So, you know, if your energy is high and you want to attract more of that, you've got to kind of be in that space. And I think it's just so interesting. Like I said, we could do a whole podcast on this, but like everything happens the way it's supposed to. And I think, I mean, how old are you?
I'm 27 now.
25.
Like these guys are young. You guys are, you know, as a almost 40-year-old in October, mate.
I'm day older than 29.
Like
Don't worry about that.
you guys are old enough to be my kids, which is mortifying. But like you're so inspiring. Like you were talking about having kids and, you know, leaving legacy and things like that. And it's very much, you know, something that I think of as a parent. It's probably because I'm in the help space, so that's probably why I think more so. But I am very aware of it. I mean, Micah listens to the podcast in the car. He's now discovered that I'm on YouTube.
Yeah, he's
and so he's like, any house he goes to, he's like, Mummy's on YouTube, put Mummy on YouTube. And he'll literally just put it on in the background whilst he's playing. Like he chooses to do it. I mean, the kid's killing me, like, you know, talk about broody. But I think you guys are a massive inspiration for what you're doing with the products as a business, as helping however many people you can help, you know, through what you do. And I'm inspired, which is why I wanted, obviously, to have you here. I think you guys have incredible energy, and with so much in the last 18 months that you've gone through, like, and I'm sorry, without being patronizing, with your age, to have been able to handle all of that and still be okay. I think it's just testament to what is possible, what humans are possible, you know, are capable of doing. So
I just want to just say one thing as well, like, don't get us wrong, you know, everything isn't glory and beautiful days every day, you know. Gabriel and I will be the first to tell you, we spend a lot of time together. I spend more time with Gabriel than I do with my girlfriend at the moment, right? And, you know, there are days when we can get at each other's throats, but I think, you know, it's very good how quickly we're able to look at each other and say, don't worry, mate, let's move on and you know, appreciate what the situation was, be honest with each other and work through those cracks. And that's a testament. I'm really grateful to have you, man. I appreciate that.
Good.
the bro man.
You know, you've got to have it though. And I think, you know, as Josh said, you know, there are times, but they're few and far between, and they're very short-lived because you know, we've got a mutual goal, and we know that if we stick together we can do it. So,
it's interesting that you said that though, because we were going to finish on just 3 tips for self-care, and especially because you guys are guys and you're young as well. Like, what are you doing to keep yourself healthy in both mind, body and spirit through all this? What do you do? What keeps you going?
That's just a tough thing. We can battle with each other.
I mean, listen, to be fair, you know, it is one of those things that's really, really important to manage. And we've spent a lot of our time traveling around. You know, we've been to 6 countries in 6 weeks pretty much, and we're off to Spain in a few days. And we're really trying to do a lot to try and grow the brand, but it does result in, you know, we're pretty exhausted all the time. And, you know, we're traveling and we're away. As Josh said, he sees his girlfriend not as much as he should do, and apologies for that. And that's partly my fault. But I mean, for myself, like as I mentioned before, like, you know, you mentioned you had a little breakdown. You know, when I was still, this is a while ago now, but I had a little moment. It was coming towards the end of a pretty, you know, treacherous, or not treacherous is the wrong word, just intense time for me. You know, a few things didn't go right at work. I was just feeling the pressure, and then I found out my parents getting divorced. And I just had a moment, and since then,
as well,
I started researching ways that I could find ways. I've always struggled just to be able to sit there in complete silence, and I've tried to meditate in the past, but I found it really, really difficult. And I found using Calm, it absolutely changed my life. And that's not just about, you know, doing those meditation sessions, but also, you know, when I get into bed, I find that my mind is most active, and I really do struggle just to switch it off and go to sleep, because it's very rare that you get that time that you could just sit there and reflect. And you either reflect on what you've done that day, or you reflect on what you've got to do, the next day. So calm is something that, I have my reminders, and I'm often on there. I just take a moment with my AirPods and get time to meditate, and I listen to the sleep stories and all those kind of things, and self-help stuff as well on calm as well. So I listen to those things, but predominantly, I really like just getting out. So I've got a beautiful little Cocker Spaniel that I love walking. I love walking, spending time with him. He's an absolute sweetheart, and he wouldn't hurt a fly. So he's really great to be around, and he often boosts my mood, and we go for walks. And I've also got into swimming on Hampstead Heath recently, which is something which is a little bit extreme.
A bit chilly.
Oh my gosh, we went the other day.
We've got a very dear friend of mine who, of ours actually, he got into the Wim Hof method. I don't know if you've ever heard of that. So he actually went out to Poland, did a whole course on him, and spent some time. He practiced it every day, and actually on Saturday we were all together and we went down for a little dip in the Hampstead Heath. I think the water temperature was 5 degrees, and it's an experience.
Yeah, I don't think I saw that on stories.
No, that was on the Instagram story. Trust me, you'll see that one.
I enjoy the rush that it gives you, and there's loads of things. I enjoy being outside and just doing things.
That's key. What about you, Josh?
Eating healthy. It's got to be the number one thing that we do now that we couldn't do because we had no money. We couldn't even eat.
The diet at the beginning of this was poor, but that's because it is hard. As Josh said, it's hard to eat healthy these days, especially living in London. Everything's so expensive. But, it's something that we're conscious of.
Oh my god, we completely missed one of the most important parts of our journey. We completely missed it. So when we first started this, and this all goes back to eating healthy, and we first started this idea of concept and what we were going to do, and we wanted to make a drink. We were like, all right, well, first things first, and same with any business, let's go out and make sure that people want this, right? So Gabriel and I, do you remember? I can't believe we forgot that. Gabriel and I were sat there, and we were like, all right, we need to go to markets. We need to go to vegan markets, fresh food markets. We need to go and we need to build a stall. We need to get everyone together and start making CBD cold pressed juices and start interviewing people, asking them what they know about CBD, what they don't, because that allowed us to sort of direct our path and where we were going to go to. And Gabriel and I were up, so we used to go down to the Battersea Fruit and Veg Market, big up Battersea Fruit and Veg Market, where we had to get there for 1 a.m. Because it's open from 1 a.m. to 3 a.m. and then the market would start at 7 a.m. So we would go in there, buying all the fresh fruit and veg, renting zip vans and loading it up with fruit and veg. And, I want to say also a big shout out to the friends who helped us there. There was Clara, Marley, Danica, my girlfriend as well. Who else? Orally, these people sacrificed their time to come out and help us at these fruit and veg markets, which again was such a testament to the mental health, where it means having good people around you. And I tell you something, if you think people don't care about you, there is always somebody out there who does care about you. And you might not hear it all the time, and I know that might be a little bit disheartening, and that might take things away from you. But there's always somebody out there who is willing to listen. So don't think there isn't anybody out there who's willing to listen. So we started doing this fruit and veg market for weeks, and I'll send you some photos so you can share it. You can share it. We got the brands made, and it was just a really great experience. And we met so many people. We met a few celebrities who were doing it. Tim Westwood came down, gave us a big up. There was a couple of others who've been really big advocates so far, who really understood what we're trying to do and appreciated the effort and the time that it takes. And that really, it's so funny, now we were like, all right, fine, fruit and veg, really healthy, all right, let's get into a good diet. So now go and bulk buy our foods, we'll prep all of our meals, we'll eat really healthy now. So I'd say that's probably the first thing that we do, or I do anyway, but we do it together.
I just get him to prep mine.
However, I will say he's the best at chopping onions. I've never met anybody like him. Second thing, football. If you don't know me, you will know that football is a massive part of my life. I'm a Tottenham Hotspur fan. No one can tell me any different. Spurs are the best. I play football as many times during a week as I can, and I absolutely love it. And, when people talk about meditation, I find football for me is meditation, because my understanding, and maybe I'm wrong, but meditation is about completely switching your mind off and being in the moment, I suppose. And I find that when I'm playing football, I'm so instinctive, and there is nothing else apart from instinct and seeing what's going on the pitch, and I completely forget about all my trials and tribulations and everything else that you're going through. And for those 90 minutes that you're on the pitch and you're with your team and you're encouraging people, you're helping people to do better every time. And then when you get on the ball and that moment of magic comes, because I play striker, so that moment of magic comes when you get the ball and your instinctive nature comes into play, and you can shimmy past the player and you can whip the ball in top corner. You know, that feeling, that satisfaction, that moment, I mean, the endorphins, the rush of serotonin that run through your body when those times happen. So for me, that I'm just grabbing my chair, how excited it's making me, you know. I'm so passionate about it. It's just one of those things that, you know, sport and team sport especially has just been one of those contributing factors to my mental health, you know. So that would be my second thing. So eating well, playing sports, and the third thing that I attribute to strong mental health is, you know, I talk to people about what's going on in my life, about my problems. You know, I'm not embarrassed about anything. I've done some embarrassing things, but I will talk about it to the people that I know will understand. Because I know there's a lot of people out there who don't have anybody to speak to. I know a few friends of mine, you know, a friend of mine who's killed themselves before, and you know, you sit there and you think, fuck man, if only they knew, sorry to swear again, but only if they knew, you know, that people were there to listen to them, you know, things wouldn't have to be the way they are. And males especially, you know, there's more suicide rate with males than females, and that's because there's this whole conception of, you know, man up. You know, when you were a kid, you were. It was always, you know, the sports guys, the jocks guys, and then the geek guys, and no matter what happened, it was always like man up. And what does that even mean? You know, man up, or be a man, be strong, be fit. You know, take it on the chin and don't show any emotion. That's what it's supposed to mean, but that's not what you should be doing. You know, it's even more a testament to your character to show emotion and 100%. Let people know how you feel, you know. And Gabriel and I are both very emotional characters, you know, that's for sure, yeah?
No, I think on that point, you know, the fact that we do spend so much time together, we do have a platform where we talk about everything, absolutely anything. Anything that's on our mind. I mean, I've never, in the last 2 years, anything that's come to mind, whether it's been something that I probably don't want to tell him, but I just have this feeling on me that, you know, I have to tell him, you know, whether it's work related or, you know, just normal life related. It's having someone there to talk about those kind of things is a massive way that you can just release those things that they are burdens and they do weigh you down. And
exactly. And you can both, you know, have a drink together like I think we're about to do, right?
That's for you.
Do this.
Thanks very much.
So excited. And I really love the packaging. I think this is like really nice branding. I'm not going to lie, but I do like it. Ex-marketeer in me just loves a little bit of branding.
Oh, by the way, the label is not from hemp. Just so you know, the caps are aluminium, the bottle, the glass is glass, obviously. Everything's fully recyclable. We don't use any plastic in our methods. You know, it's really important that you understand we are to the power.
Smells good.
What do you smell?
Try it.
It does smell good. I am excited.
Continue.
So do I need to like down it?
No,
is it like a sambuca?
Well, you don't set it on fire.
That is really good.
Every time I drink it, I love it even more. It's not even a joke.
That's easy.
You think because it's your own brand, but it's not. It's actually amazing.
That is really good. I'm going to taste that later.
No hunger.
Josh, Gabriel, thank you so much for doing this today. I really appreciate it. I think it's been a really wicked show, and I'm really grateful. I know, right? Yeah. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you for listening to the Self-Care 101 podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, I would love it if you would subscribe and review so that other people like you can find the show. For more tips and tricks, you can follow me on the socials at Frankly Coaching, or visit my website to find out more about my coaching programs and how to work with me at franklycoaching.com.